Hi guys. We are doing the last part of chapter 8 today. It is combining 8.4 and 8.5. It's how does the ecosystem approach help first terrestrial biodiversity and then aquatic biodiversity. So we're doing land first and then water. So it'd be a little bit longer, but we're putting the two together. Okay, get ready. All right. All right, so first with the terrestrial biodiversity, of course that means land. These are the main ideas that we're going to be covering. Let me get a pen for you. Okay, we need the steps to sustaining biodiversity. There's going to be like a set of steps to memorize. We need to define the biodiversity hotspots, explain their importance, and we'll also talk about what it requires to be a hotspot. We're going to understand the importance of protecting these. Why do we want to do this? And human communities. So what we're going to do in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to save the land plus how to make it usable for the humans. So we're not just doing animals, we're doing animals and humans, trying to figure out how we can work together. In the very, very beginning, we called it human-wildlife confrontation, I think. So we're trying to figure out how wildlife and humans can learn to live together and share the planet. And we're going to also describe methods to repair damaged ecosystems because we have made a huge mess so far. We need to figure out how to repair them and how reconciliation ecology. Reconciliation means making friends again. Okay. When you reconcile with somebody, you've had an argument or something and you make friends again. So it's called reconciliation ecology. We mess things up. Now we need to fix it. Okay. So we need the humans to be able to share the ecosystems with the other species. Okay, when humans aren't going anywhere, but we need to learn how to work together. Okay, now we have these three key terms on this page, but as you notice in our notes, we have several extra added. I'm not sure why they didn't put them all in here. All right, these are our 3 lesson videos. We may not have done it before this way in our class before, but I have your 3 video lessons right here, and you'll have, remember this is terrestrial, we're going to do aquatic in a minute. So these are the 3 terrestrial videos. I want you to collect 15 facts from each one. You can label your paper just video 1, video 2, video 3, and then put please number your 15 facts from each one. All right, thanks. All right, now the ecosystem approach. Again, we're trying to save the whole ecosystem, not just specific species. Okay, so we have a 5-point plan. All right, so the focus on protecting the threatened habitat and their ecosystem services. So ecosystem services, one of the videos that you're watching is about ecosystem services, and to remind you what they are. It's like when the ecosystem services means that's stuff that the earth does to help us or protect us. And so it's like when the earth purifies water for us, or the plants do photosynthesis and give us oxygen, or nature provides food for us. Those are ecosystem services that the earth does for us. So we need to protect the habitats and make sure that the ecosystems they are providing for us continue to be provided. So the key features of this, the whole ecosystem, the key features of it says 5-point plan. We're going to get to this depths in just a second, but this is not what we're talking about yet. We're talking about the whole approach. Why is the approach important? First, it's holistic. You've heard of that, talking about medicine. It covers land, water, and living resources together. Holistic means the whole thing. All right, that's what we're kind of talking about. We don't want to just save this species here or this species here or this type of tree or this type of animal. We want to save the whole ecosystem, holistic. And then it needs to be sustainable. All right, because right now let's say right now we care about the ecosystem, but in a while, say 10, 20 years, we find some sort of resource that just saves the world and humans just need this resource really, really bad. We need to find a way to continue to protect the ecosystems sustainably throughout the generations, not just now, but for the people coming after us as well. So it needs to be sustainable. Equitable. You guys have heard the word equitable before. That means fair. Okay, it needs to ensure fair and just outcomes for all, not just the rich people who are making the rules. Not just the rich people who are making the rules. Not just the ones who want to save the ecosystems because they're pretty. We need to also be fair to the villagers or the small communities who need to use these resources. We don't want to just save them because they're pretty and then these guys wind up starving to death because they're not allowed to use it. That's not fair at all. Okay. It has to be also human-centric. I mean, like I said, humans aren't going anywhere. It recognizes that humans are part of the ecosystem. We're not going to be able to save it without us being in it. And as beautiful as it would be to take the humans out of the equation, save the earth, let it recover, because like it's us messing it up. All right, it's us messing it up. But we're not going anywhere. All right, so we need to find a way that we can't just remove humans from the thing altogether. We need to find a way to save the ecosystems and still incorporate humans within them. So it emphasizes a balanced and integrated means put together, integrated management strategy for conserving biodiversity while acknowledging the human dimension. See the whole thing? All right. And so the question here is, what is biodiversity friendly development? As you're going through your text, take a look. What do you think it is? Okay, biodiversity friendly development. Okay, like I said, humans aren't going anywhere. All right, now we said that there was a 5-step plan. Okay, 5 parts of the plan. So here are your 5 parts. All right, you're going to map and inventory the ecosystems, show what's there because we need to know what is there so we know how to protect it. We need to identify the resilient, means the ones that can bounce back, and the fragile ecosystems, the ones where if we mess them up too hard, they're messed up bad. Like sometimes you can say the rivers and streams and deserts and stuff, they're a little bit more resilient, but like the tundra, we start messing with the tundra, that ruins the whole thing. Even the littlest bit of messing with the tundra, it's very, very fragile. So we need to go through the ecosystems. We studied biomes. Okay, try to remember what we learned. We need to determine which ones are more resilient and which ones are more fragile. And then we need to protect the endangered plants. Okay, did you guys realize most of the time we're talking about conservation, we are talking about plants? Yeah, most of the time we're talking about plants, because when we talk about the whole ecosystem, because the plants are king. The plants determine what animals can live there. If we don't have our native plants or whatever plants are designed for that ecosystem, the animals that are designed around that food web can't be there. We have to protect the plants, and half the time we think about the cute cuddly animals and we completely forget the plants altogether. We can't do it that way. We have to conserve the plants. And I know they're not as much fun. They seem a little boring, but that's what we have to do. Okay, so we have to protect the endangered plants and those ecosystem services they provide. Okay, again, plants are making our oxygen for us. They're kind of important. Okay, then we need to restore the degraded ecosystem. I told you we've made a mess. We need to fix it. Okay, and then we need to make development biodiversity friendly. So meaning when we have to build something more, or we have, I mean, there's so many humans and we're getting like more and more of us all the time. We're going to have to develop more so that we have places to live, but the development has to be biodiversity friendly. Okay, we have to, whatever we have to do to expand human stuff, all right, we have to fix it so that the biodiversity can go right along with it. All right, so what we need to do is we need to protect the biodiversity hotspots. I've got a map, I think, on a slide. I'm going to show you in just a few minutes where they are, but biodiversity hotspots are areas with high levels of endemic species. Do you remember endemic? We learned it, I think, chapter 4. Endemic means native to that area and not really found anywhere else. Okay, native to that area, not found anywhere. So it has a whole bunch of things that live only there, plus it has a lot of habitat loss. The thing about these biodiversity hotspots is once we get them, and you'll see what the criteria are in a second, but once we get them justified and registered as a biodiversity hotspot, then all of a sudden we can get a lot of money put into these areas that can get them fixed. All right, and not only that, the people who live there, if the villagers or the small communities that live there, they get to take part in that funding in order to help continue protecting these hotspots. All right, so we have to know what they are, and we have to know where on the earth we can map them, and then we can put money in and resources in and stuff like that to continue to protect them. So what makes it a biodiversity hotspot is high levels of endemic species. What I say endemic means? They are native to that area and they only live in that area. So a lot of endemic species and a lot of habitat loss. And again, habitat loss happens because there's too many humans. All right. So the criteria to make them marked as a hotspot, biodiversity hotspot, they have to have lost at least 70% of the original habitat gone. And they have to have at least 1,500 endemic plant species. Now, there we go again, plant species. Because as we said, the plants are going to determine what animals live there. And if you can't keep the plants in the area, the animals are going to die off anyway. So we have to know that it has at least 1,500 endemic plant species. And the significance of this is they only cover a small portion of the Earth's land surface, but they hold a vast majority of global biodiversity. If you think of the rainforest jungles. Okay, rainforest jungles are actually really small little areas. If you take the whole map, the rainforest jungles are a really small little area, but within that little area, there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of animals and plants that live there. So they have a small amount of Earth's land surface, but a vast majority of the global biodiversity that lives there. And they need to be home to a significant portions of the world's endangered species and human populations. The whole thing with this ecosystem conservation is that we are figuring out how the human populations can live within these systems. So the key takeaways of how we're going to protect these biodiversity hotspots, they are crucial for global biodiversity and conservation. Protecting these is a critical step in addressing the biodiversity crisis. And effective protection is going to require strong conservation efforts. Now, this is where we get into trouble. In the 1970s, we had a green revolution, and we set a whole bunch of conservation and ecology type things we put them in place. We set laws, we set requirements, we set a whole bunch of programs in place. That was in the 70s, but in the 80s there was a backlash where the business people were all making money. They didn't care how, doing whatever it takes for the bottom line, and they repealed they took the strength out of a lot of those advances we'd made in the 70s. The 80s killed them all because they wanted money, and nobody stopped them. All right. So now as we're spinning around and trying to get back around to getting it done right, we need strong conservation efforts, strong enough that it works and can still stand up to the money people. Okay, so in that case, you're going to have to find a way to make this work and still be profitable to those guys who are going to shoot you in the foot trying to get this work done. Okay, so if you can't find a way to have strong conservation efforts, strong enough to stand up to the bullies, you're not going to be able to get it done. But the thing about it is, it has to also address the human pressures on these ecosystems. Again, humans are not going anywhere. In fact, it's probably going to get worse. So we have to find ways to get what the human needs, be strong enough to stand up to the greedy business people and still get the stuff we need done. So what are the criteria used to identify the biodiversity hotspots? That was on the slide just previously. So if you need to roll back, go check it. These are where they are. Okay, this is the Amazon jungle. Okay, this is the Andes Mountains. Okay, this is all of, this is South America. Lots of jungles here to be protected. All right, and then of course we have, this is all around the Mediterranean. Okay, very important areas. And of course, this area here is where you have, the gorillas live here, the chimpanzees live here. It's really, really important. Okay, and then here we have, where's my mouse again? Up here. Okay, here's where we're going to have our snow leopards. And here we have all sorts of stuff. In India, we have the tigers and things of that sort. And here in Australia, there's an incredible amount of things in here that we just can't get anywhere else. And Japan here, this is where we at. There's this Japan. There's a whole bunch of things here. And if I could find where Hawaii is Hawaii is too small. You can't see it, but almost the whole of Hawaii is a hotspot. All right, so these are the ones that we've marked so far. 34 of them so far, and these are the ones where once they meet that criteria that we talked about, we can fund money in here, and the native people or the original villages, the original communities who live here, they can take process part of that. Okay, so that's what we're trying to protect. So the human impact of these ecosystem services, we've degraded or overused 60% of the ecosystem services worldwide. I mean, 60% of what the Earth has done for us, we've messed it all to pieces. So the consequences of that is the declining biodiversity and then threats to human well-being. Because we're throwing away or disturbing or ruining our biodiversity, we're actually hurting ourselves doing this. This is why we've started to add humans back into the equation. We are hurting ourselves with what we're doing here. So with this ecosystem approach, it's going to protect the areas with the vital ecosystem services. And remember, we talked about ecosystem services, and one of your videos goes over that. It's like water filtration that the earth does for it, providing food for us, providing oxygen for us, but it's also going to address the human needs alongside the conservation. It focuses on life raft ecosystem. Think about life rafts. Okay, if your ship is sinking, all right, and you're about to die, there's nothing else going on, because in a lot of these, they talk about tipping points. All right, so we have come to the we've hit a point where there's almost no coming back from it. Okay, there's like you hit this tipping point and you're just done. Okay, so we are like really close to the edge of this tipping point. We may be able to bring it back and make ourselves safe again, but for the most part, if we hit this tipping point, our ship is sinking. All right, and that's why we need these life raft ecosystems, areas with high poverty and dependence on the ecosystem services. If the humans are in high poverty and they depend on the ecosystem services, we talked about this when we talked about the forests. If they are in poverty and they need these resources to live, you cannot tell them, don't cut down this tree if their family is starving. Don't kill that animal if you need it for food. You can't do that. It's not fair. But we still need to protect these things, but we can't let the people suffer. This is why this thing has to work together. We need to find ways, if we can call it a biodiversity hotspot, there's funding and stuff. The people who are in poverty, who are living there, we can find ways to help them and funding to help them and still maintain the ecosystems that they live in. Okay. So the goal is to protect both human communities and ecosystems that they depend on. It should be, we got to have a win-win situation between people and nature. It emphasizes the interconnectedness of human well-being and the ecosystem health, promoting sustainable solutions that benefit both. Okay, that's where this is coming up new. This is new ways to do this. So we talk about why is protecting human communities important to protecting ecosystem services. We just said that a second ago. If they need to cut down this what's the word? I lost my words. If they need to cut down this endangered or critically endangered tree in order to have what they need to grow, or if they need their food, or they're killing this animal, if this animal is endangered but it's their food, then we can't stop them. We need to find ways to protect both the people and the ecosystems. Okay. So now, once we've done it, we've talked about over 60% of our ecosystems we have ruined. So how do we fix them? Okay, how do we fix our ecosystems? Almost every natural place on Earth has been impacted by some degree. Almost every place. In most often negative ways. There's very seldom where humans have been that it turned out nicer. It's almost always negative. However, it's possible to partially reverse much of this damage caused by the human activities, and so many of the damaged ecosystems can be partially restored. We just have to take the initiative and do it. So ecological restoration aims to return the ecosystems back to their near original state. We can't get them back perfect, but we can get close. It involves techniques like replantings, species reintroduction, and invasive species removal. So we need to replant the native plants, obviously. The animals that used to live there, we need to bring them back. And the invasive species who've taken over in the interim, we need to get them out. So the researchers are suggesting a 4-step strategy to carrying out most of the ecological restoration. There's 4 steps. Okay, sounds like whenever we have a step like this, a listing question is probably coming up. Okay, first, identify what caused the degradation, like pollution, farming, overgrazing, mining, whatever, figure out what caused it. Second, stop it. Okay, by eliminating or sharply reducing these factors. Third, reintroduce the key species. Okay, remember key species we learned about when we did our wolves. Key species are the ones that by removing them, the whole ecosystem suffers. Putting them back in will ratchet back up the productivity in that ecosystem. So reintroduce the key species to help restore the natural ecological processes, as was done with the gray wolves like we talked about in the Yellowstone. And fourth, protect the area from further degradation. In step 1, you figured out what caused it, right? In step 1, you figured out what caused it. Step 4 is to make sure it doesn't happen again. Pretty easy, right? These 4 steps. So first, identify what's causing the degradation. Second, stop. the degradation. Third, bring back the key species that can help you maintain and redevelop the ecosystem. And four, protect it. Don't let it happen again. So the key takeaways here is ecological restoration is crucial for mitigating the impacts of human activities on ecosystem. Like I said, in just about every place humans are, it's worse. It's almost never better. So this multi-step, in case 4 steps, is necessary for successful restoration, and these protecting the ecosystem from further degradation is essential. So again, what we have here is we have the ecological restoration is crucial for mitigating the impacts of human activities. We're the one making the mess. We have this multi-step approach, this 4 steps, and we need to protect these ecosystems from further degradation. So how is this restoration? How is ecological? Oh, let's think about this question a second. How is ecological restoration, fixing it, related to ecological succession? Remember how we learned how the forests and the ecosystems go through these changes? How does this ecological restoration go through these changes? If we input a good change right here, then we can do more good changes later. Okay, stop. All right, so here we have a table here that helps us to figure out how to repair these damaged ecosystems. First, restoration. We need to return the degraded habitat to a condition similar as possible to the natural state. Then rehabilitate, meaning turn this degraded ecosystem into functional or useful ecosystem without trying to restore to, even if we can't restore it to original, we need to make it functional and useful, like by removing pollutants or any industrial sites and replanting trees to reduce the soil erosion in the clear-cut forests. And then we could replace a degraded system with another type if we can't fix it. Okay, for example, degraded forest may be replaced with a productive pasture or a tree plantation. So if we can't fix it, we could replace it with something good. And then we can create artificial ecosystems, intentionally establishing environments that function for the most part like their natural counterparts. So these are all different things. If we can't restore it, we'll try to rehabilitate it. If we can't rehabilitate it, we'll try to replace it with something that's good. And if we can't replace it, we'll just create one that works. Okay, so these are all the different things that we can do to help us repair our damaged ecosystems. All right, so using this table we just went through, there's talking about the 4 different ways that the ecosystem can be repaired. Well, why not restore all damage to their original? In what case would we not? Think about it, because these are opinions. There's no wrong answer. Okay, why would we create an artificial one instead of repairing the existing ones? If it's too badly damaged and we can't repair it, okay, we know what we can do. Why not restore all of them to the original states? Well, humans have to live somewhere. All right, what's the difference between restoring and rehabilitating an ecosystem? Go back to the table. We just saw it. Okay, remember that the main focus here within this section is that how can we fix the ecosystems and still share them with humans. Okay, so sharing the ecosystem with the other species is what we're going to be focusing on. The reconciliation ecology, remember I said the word reconciliation means to make friends again. Okay, you've had a fight, you've had some sort of argument, and you need to come back together as friends again. So that's what reconciliation ecology is. We've ruined the world. How do we bring it back and make friends again with nature and the species? It focuses on finding ways for humans to share the species the spaces that they dominate with the other species, finding ways to share. So creating and maintaining new habitats for wildlife within the human-dominated areas, like green roofs or wildlife corridors. Like I said, the humans aren't going anywhere. All right, and then redesigning these human activities, modifying land practices to support the biodiversity, like reducing pesticide use and creating pollinator gardens. And then ecotourism, which, as we talked about in one of the earlier sections, is an amazing way to help promote sustainable tourism that supports wildlife conservation and the local economies. Like I said, a lot of these beautiful biodiversity hotspots include villages. Hang on a second, my phone's going on. A lot of these beautiful biodiversity hotspots are in areas of the world where the people who live there are incredibly poverty stricken. That's just how it is. These beautiful hotspots are, the people who live there are living in poverty most of the time. This ecotourism allows us to maintain these biodiversity hotspots, the people who live there, find their money and their living and their livelihood through the ecotourism, and then it's a win-win situation. That's what we're trying to work on. So some examples of sharing the ecosystem with species is like providing artificial nesting sites for bluebirds. Bluebirds should be living in our area. They are absolutely gorgeous, but some of the invasive birds have taken their nesting sites and there are almost no bluebirds left. So we provide artificial nesting for them, or creating pollinator gardens. You know that we're having a lot of trouble with the bees, and because of pesticides and such. And without the bees, we have no food. The fruit and a lot of the plants, the vegetables that we need to eat, require these pollinators, and they're gone. So creating pollinator gardens will help to do that. And then implementing pesticide-free zones. Like the whole reason we've lost our pollinators is because of the pesticides. Creating pesticide-free zones, not just one person's yard who's trying to be green, whole areas where pesticide is banned so that the pollinators and the other animals and the water, everything can be reestablished and fixed. Oh, hang on, let me change the slide just a second. All right, so the benefits of this reconciliation ecology, okay, it helps to conserve biodiversity in human-dominated landscapes. Like I said, it would be beautiful if we could just get rid of the humans altogether, but that's not going to happen. It provides economic and social benefits to local communities, like the ecotourism, like I talked about, and vital ecosystem services like pollination. This reconciliation ecology demonstrates that humans can coexist with wildlife. We have to find ways to make this happen. We can coexist with the wildlife on a mutually beneficial way, promoting both biodiversity and conservation and human well-being. So why must there be more emphasis on conserving species biodiversity in areas where the humans are dominant? Because we're going to take over all of their space. Okay, so these are ways that you can help. Okay, you guys are going to have your own houses now. You guys are going to be grown soon. These are the things you can do to help. Okay, think about it. Now, there's this debate, the perfect lawn. Okay, since the 50s or 60s, people have wanted a lawn that pretty. That kind of lawn is actually not really good. So for decades, the U.S. families have striven to have a perfect lawn that grows a single species of grass. To maintain this, they have applications of toxic chemicals applied to the lawn every year. These chemicals harm wildlife, people, and pets. They seep into the soil and the water, and they continue to do harm as they travel to new places. What's more important, the safety and health or the weed-free lawn? Explain your answer. Okay, this could be a whole pollinator place. You could have flowers and maintain. You wouldn't have to mow. Are you kidding me? If you had a wild yard and it was okay to have a wild yard, the neighbors looking at you bad is not a good enough reason to go back on your integrity. All right, think about it. This guy here, Professor Bawa, okay, you need to read his stuff. He's from India, okay, and he is trying to help with India's biodiversity hotspots. Okay, so read his information here and figure out what might be his inspiration and motivation to help. And in what ways does he apply the ecosystem approach to his work? All right, so read through that stuff and answer. All right, this is our summary for the terrestrial portion of our lesson. First, the people can sustain terrestrial biodiversity and limit the human's harmful environmental impact. So that's what we need to do. We need to protect the biodiversity and limit our environmental impact by following an ecosystem approach, the whole ecosystem. We need to identify and protect the biodiversity hotspots, and we need to employ restoration ecology and reconciliation ecology. That's what we need to do to fix it. And then people can share their resources with the other species. We need to be able to share our space by establishing and maintaining new habitats to conserve the species biodiversity in places where the people live, work, or play. So we need to be able to share the land. Okay, and I think I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to do a second video because we're doing aquatic next. This first video is terrestrial, and I'll do a second video for the aquatic. All right, I'll be back in a minute. We just said, whoops, 2 pages. Crap, hold on.